Hello everybody and welcome to the Human Echoes recap for Legion Season 2 Episode 5, Chapter 13. And there's something that is wonderful about this episode because last episode I heard a lot of people talking about this very self-contained, character-focused Sid episode as a bottle episode. Now, this is a semantic quibble. I do get what they were saying, but a bottle episode generally is like a very contained single set or already constructed sets on a TV show that they don't have to go outside and try to shoot a lot of location stuff, a lot of like outside stuff that you're not familiar with. And the funny thing is, you follow up that Sid episode, which logistically did not actually seem like much of a bottle episode because a lot of the locations were brand new to the show. And then you get this episode where like 50% of the action takes place in a single room. And it's a weird room. Okay, the room here that they've brought Lenny to, we get introduced to it with a shot that is, I guess you could say, tracking upside down, but it looks right. Like, you track with the shot into this room. There are lines that say, on the left and right side of the door, that say no physical contact and possibly something else. I forget what the other one was printed. And you pan down to the floor, which is looking down on a cityscape from pretty high up. And that's unnerving enough. And then the camera flips over to the correct orientation, and we see Lenny sitting at a table, and all of the stuff that had looked right side up is now upside down, and the ceiling is still looking down at a cityscape. And the way it's shot, by the way, because the camera moves across this window, right? So it can't be just a two-dimensional projection because the parallax of how the buildings move and how they're visible beyond the edges of the window does not match up with how a TV screen works. So this can't just be the kind of illusion that I could create by just projecting this weird city above and somebody looks up and they're creeped out. But somehow they've bent space and probably not time, although there's bending of time in this episode, so that this is upside down but also right side up. And I haven't seen enough people really talking about just how wild that is. Now, granted, there's a lot of set dressing stuff that's really wild in Legion, and maybe dwelling on this is not worth my time, but I really did get a sense of this is beyond what we've seen so far of the power of Division 3. All right, we know where Division 3 is. It's on top of a skyscraper. We've seen, like, the guy jump off of it. They're physically located somewhere. We've seen David and Sid be on the roof. So where is this place? Do we have some kind of dimensional portal? Is that what the window is? And why is everything printed upside down? Is it just to put Lenny off guard? Because it would put me off guard. It would make me real uncomfortable to be in this room. The first person who talks to Lenny is our psychologist friend, whose name I've forgotten at this moment, and I did not write down in my notes, but you know him, Half-Face, right? They got Two-Face from the Batman universe, and he's in here now. And not literally. If you just started finding out about Legion and this is the first video that you watched, that's not true, guys. That was a joke on my part. But he comes in and he asks the questions that I think all of us are asking. What are you doing here? Where did you get that body? And who are you working for? Okay, and Lenny responds a couple of ways. First off, she tells this story about her gran and sitting in the living room with gran drinking some kind of soda that she named a specific brand, but it wasn't familiar to me, so it didn't stick. But really, what was in the soda cans was vodka, and her gran was getting her drunk. And it reads like something that's planted, like a memory that is not real. The way she comes up with it, it almost feels like she's just making it up on the spur of the moment. And later on, Patanomy, you're supposed to pronounce the P in Patanomy, guys. Thank you, commenters, for reminding me of that. He goes inside her mind, and we do see that there is a memory there of this, but there's no way to know what's real. All right, David even comes in and reads her mind, and he's like, I don't know, I can't. There's a whole tangle of the Shadow King and you, and as we find out later, somebody else, and it's thoughts are thoughts. So how do I figure out which things are which? And Lenny, in this instance, really doesn't have much of an answer. But the thing that fascinated me most about this scene was Lenny coming to the psychologist guy. She's defending herself, and she says, listen, I'm not evil. And then she lists all of the things that she's done in her life that are, like, pretty evil, okay? But in her mind, we're getting a different twist on Farouk's I'm not really evil, I was just doing what I had to survive, and my culture is different than yours, so why are you judging me thing? All right? That speech that he gave to David in episode 3, I want to say, that is being replicated here with Lenny, where she says, just a victim of my circumstance, man. Like, I never really hated on people. I just wanted to get by. It was all business. I'm not a villain. All right, I wrote that quote down. She says, I'm not a villain. And one of the interesting things this season, I think, is this questioning of what morality is. How do we draw those lines between good and bad and make those decisions? And I think the show is really going far to ask that kind of thing. We then cut to Farouk and Oliver. And Farouk and Oliver are going after the body. They don't say which body. Lenny says in her interview they know where the body is. And they talk back and forth for a while. And the thing that I wrote down from this scene was something Oliver says to Farouk, where he says, nothing's felt real to me for a very long time. And it's easy to sort of lose track of the history of these characters just in the maelstrom of weirdness that's going on. But you do have to take into account the fact that Oliver was trapped in this weird astral realm for years and years, like mentally trapped, and his body stuck down in the freezer in season 1, right? And they finally did get him back, but for him, that's like last week, last month at the most. I mean, I guess he's been on the run with Farouk for a while, right? But between the time that he gets loose and the time that he is taken over by Farouk and goes on the run is a very short window of time. So his reality has just been torn apart in essence. Like, he is living more in the realm of the mental now than he is in the realm of the physical. He has lost his attachment to the real, and the only thing that's left to attach him to the real is Melanie. All right, Melanie is there in his mind, in his memory, and that's still a very strong thing. And he gets to a point where he says, remembering Melanie, he gets focused up enough to say, I'm going to kill you, to Farouk. I hope that he does. I would love to see that. In the meantime, I say in the meantime, not actually, because they're pulling a little Westworld time jump thing here with us. But what seems like the meantime, we get another visit to the weird, scary room. This time it's Patanomy. And Patanomy comes in with this quote about the present. And for my money, this episode of Legion with its philosophy went a little bit overboard with just different people saying different ideas. There's the like stuff Farouk says. There's the John Hamm thing that I'll get to in a little bit. And this is really the first one where somebody just sits down and tells you about a weird philosophical concept by telling a character about a weird philosophical concept. And they did this a few too many times, and the philosophical concepts, maybe for other people they were really interesting. For me, it came across as like kind of sort of college freshman, like, whoa, man, I just took some drugs and what even is the present? Because, like, light comes to your eyes and that takes time, and then your brain takes time to processes it, and whoa. And my answer to that is the present does not have to be defined as an infinitesimally skinny line where no time takes place. Psychologically speaking, if we're talking about the perception of reality, the present is about 2 seconds long. We've known that for a while now, all right? That's sort of just an established idea that the present, for human purposes, all right, for the purposes of our everyday life and understanding of the world, the present has a thickness. It is not this, again, completely compressed, invisible mathematical line at which the past and the future meet. And you know what, by the way, Autonomy? Screw you saying the present doesn't exist. No, because here's the thing. The only evidence we have of the past is our memories, and we know those can be flawed, and we don't have any evidence of the future. It might not be there at all. The only evidence of anything that we have is the present. So get out of here with your, like, I'm real smart and I just smoke some weed kind of philosophy. I say the present's the only real thing. Sorry, I'm arguing with the show. I don't know if that's really the purpose of this, but the upshot of the scene is that Patonomy's talking to Lenny, and she says, hey, listen, you're real good at memory, right? You don't forget stuff? And he says, yes. She covers her face and says, okay, what color are my eyes? And this is an interesting moment for me because she's baiting Lenny into figuring this mystery out. She knows something about what's different about her, and she doesn't understand the nature of herself. But Lenny gets the answer wrong, they're blue eyes, and tries to go inside of her mind, and we get a flashback to the thing, the delusion bug, for lack of a better word, crawling into his ear, as we saw, I think, in episode 2. And then we get a flash of him coming up on General Fukuyama, and there's light coming out of the basket now, and you can see the android guys in the background. And then he goes inside the basket, and it's the delusion bug. I don't know what any of that means. I don't think that's legitimately what the truth is. I don't think Fukuyama's the delusion bug, but at very least, it lets us know that Tanami is someone who's probably not able to be trusted, in the sense that his visions and his, like, images into people's minds are probably a little bit off at this point. We then get another sort of philosophical info dump, right? Which we've been getting a lot of these this season, and I've enjoyed quite a few of them. This one is about the tendency of humans to see patterns in things where they may not exist, to find shapes that are not intended, but our brains make them up. And the upshot of this is that when we see coincidence, we assume that there's some purpose behind it. They use the word conspiracy, but honestly, people use coincidence to prove a lot of things. To prove fate, to prove God, to prove, again, I guess, conspiracy. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can slice that. It's not wrong, but it's not the best one of these. It's not my favorite of all the different lessons that we've gotten about human fallibility and how our brains work. So it's there, it's fine. And we cut back after this to Farouk and Oliver talking about mortality as they watch these guys climb out of a hole, I assume like a mine of some kind that they're in, and buy donuts from a food truck that's shaped like a submarine and says Dead Sea Donuts on the side. I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna put that. I have a couple of vague theories about maybe C and then the letter C, and I don't know why dead is there, but I'll let y'all try to filter all that out. But they're having this conversation about mortality, and Oliver has another one of these sort of, again, I've just gotten into college and had some weed, and like, I think I might have a thing to say. And he talks about how the atoms that make up the car that they're in are like the same stuff that a star used to be made out of, and maybe that star extinguished some life somewhere, but now they're all together in one place. And it's the kind of sort of over dramatic, like, overthinking things. And I enjoy overthinking things to a degree, but this is like, it's just a car, dude. It's cool that it came from somewhere else, but to say that life doesn't matter because life is made of atoms and a car is made of atoms it's really far out there, my dude. Oliver, you have been in the astral plane for too long. Your mind has pickled. Like, you know for a fact that life is something beyond the matter because you've existed outside of the matter. So why are you, like, equating life with just dead matter? It does not, did not track for me. It felt, again, this is not a criticism of the episode. I think that it's an interesting look into where his character is, sort of mentally, what he's going through and how he's processing things. But I don't buy into that particular philosophy, let's just say. We then cut back to the upside down room, and this time David's in there, and David's what Lenny has wanted. She's been asking for David this whole time, and now he's here. And if I'm running Division 3, this is not the thing that I do. Maybe there's high-level discussions that have happened outside the room we won't get to see about, like, okay, we've tried all of our other things. You're psychic, so you can get in there and see something, and I guess we'll shake loose whatever Farouk's plan is. Maybe we have to go along with it to find out what's going on. Maybe that's happening, but it seems like you've had this person who has been a puppet of Farouk for literally the entire time you've known her, and she's shown back up under real mysterious circumstances, and the one thing she wants, she keeps asking every single one of these people that comes into the room, is to talk to David, and, like, desperate to talk to David. I would not be just like, well, here's David on a silver platter, y'all. But you need it to make the plot work, and we'll let that slide. And David is asking, whose body is that? Whose body is that? And I'm a little bit ahead of this twist, okay? And I don't say that to brag, because I think sometimes you're just in the right mind state to be like, oh, I know where that's going. And the reason that I was ahead of this little twist was that I had been wondering if we were going to see David's sister, like, at all again. It felt weird that she was kind of an important part of season 1, but then she was just gone, and we hadn't, like, addressed that or had her back in the show at all. And it just felt like, why is this character just falling off the map? And also because I can't remember faces, so, like, even when she showed up in this episode, I was like, what, who is that? Is that her? And then a lot of people were mad that her husband apparently wasn't the same actor who played her husband in the first place, and I was so far beyond being able to recognize that, again, because I'm terrible with faces on television, unless I've really gotten to know them. And we slowly get this reveal throughout the course of this interview that David does, that the body that Farouk had found and used this gun on, and we get sort of a flashback to what he was doing when he was invading the Division 3 earlier, that he was getting this weird little doohickey, and the body that they went to get stuff to put in the doohickey for was not Farouk's body. It was Lenny's body. Lenny's dead body, dug up in the desert, put Lenny's DNA in there, goes and finds David's sister, and terraforms David's sister. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Like, morphs her into Oliver, or to Lenny's body, and then sends her back to Division 3. There's some interesting stuff about the fact that David's sister had a vision of Admiral Fukuyama. I don't know what that was about. I have questions about, beyond just because it's weird, why is this house set in this sort of sea of windmills that she's staying in? I have the feeling that they could have, like, I don't think that's actually where that set is, right? I'm guessing that they digitally added those windmills. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they just happened to find a weird house in a windmill field. But if they chose to have all these windmills around, I don't know what that means exactly for the, like, is it just like because they can have power out there and not have to worry about like getting it from the grid? Is it safer that way? Is it some kind of symbolic thing with Don Quixote? You got me. I haven't figured that out, if it means anything. I haven't figured out the Dead Sea Donuts thing, so whatever these things are supposed to be pointing towards symbolically, they're going right over my head. I have failed. But she gets kidnapped here, and it's a pretty rough scene, especially because as you realize how it's put together time-wise, and see David react to this moment, you know, this fact that his sister has been essentially killed, although there must be some of her still in there, right? Because if he was able to see those little flashes of their childhood, which he was, then it seems likely that there's pieces of his sister stuck inside of Lenny. And poor Lenny, that's just messed up. And to be fair, even if she comes back, like, she's clearly not going to be cool. Like, her husband got disintegrated into dust. Poor guy. And a lot of people talking about connections to another movie that's come out recently, which I won't say anything more about for sake of spoilers. But there have been a few Legion moments that have been echoed in other popular media that's out right now, which is a fun thing, and I think probably coincidence, all right? Not conspiracy, even if it is Marvel Television. And, you know, David just gets all mad, and he's like, I'm coming for you now, Farouk, which I saw a lot of people cheering and, like, getting all excited about, like, David's finally coming for Farouk, yeah. To me, this is like, well, okay, yeah, and you didn't go after him before because? Why? Like, he does have a deal with Farouk, admittedly, that he was going to help him find his body, and his deal was Farouk wouldn't hurt anybody. Farouk broke that deal, okay? So, especially in like messing up his sister and turning her into Lenny, and B, in killing his sister's husband, even if he doesn't know that it was definitely breaking the deal. And I could see why he'd be like, okay, fine, the deal is off. But what are you going to do, David? You have not beat this guy yet. Like, there's no indication that you have the power to beat this guy from anything we've seen you actually do in the show. What is your plan here? Just getting mad is not good enough. Okay. Anyway, I'm nitpicking here, and I know that a lot of y'all are excited to really see David go off, and I'm not trying to completely rain on that parade, but David doesn't really have a plan. And I think Farouk does, okay? I really super think the theory that I saw posted somewhere else, this was not my original idea, but it makes a ton of sense, is that Farouk's body is not in some perpetual state of preservation. It's a body, and it rotted. And Farouk is going to have to get somebody else to terraform their body, and somebody who's able to mutate and do cool mutant things. And who can do cool mutant things with their minds? Well, it's David. So I think Farouk's plan here all along has been to take his DNA whenever he does find his body and like change David into him, and then take over David once again and like be himself once more. We could get some other twists and changes coming, and we're certainly getting some weirdness coming next episode with the multiple timelines or many worlds or who knows what that is supposed to be. But it looks fun and weird, and this whole show is not at all ever disappointed on the fun and weird. I like this episode. I didn't love this episode. I have to say, this felt like medium Legion for me. Not like, oh man, the show's really taking a negative turn. I don't know, guys. Am I gonna keep going? I still enjoy it. Like it still had the weirdness that I like, but this one felt a little bit self-important with the philosophizing in a way that the others have not, where it just felt like people were just spewing information instead of actually giving us insight into what's going on. The plot point of Farouk reviving Lenny with David's sister's body, that was good stuff. But it, like, the getting to that plot point with all the interviews and stuff, I felt was just not my favorite episode. I'll just say that and leave it there, and I'm sure some of y'all will disagree, but that's what the comments are for, which is a good time to segue into that and remind you guys that I do love reading your comments, and I try to reply to as many of them as I can. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this, if you want the audio-only version of this, by the way, I'm going to leave the RSS feed link down in the description, so check that out. And I will see you guys next week with another episode of the Many Worlds Legion Recap. Take care.